gender audit of educational institutions is a process for organizational assessment and a tool for action planning from a gender perspective. So it's very important. Our university has been doing it in past also, but we would like to do it in a more better way this time. If there have been any lacunae in the past, we would definitely like to correct ourselves. It critically examines the capacity of institutions to ensure a safe and secure ambience for women and girl students, faculty and administrative staff. See, everyone in this hall knows that it's about 50% of our females are our students now, and they appear in the entrance test. It's by the dint of intelligence. They crack the entrance test and get admission over here. So is of the research scholars. So definitely the policy has to be in place. The roadmap has to be in place. The infrastructure has to be in place. Awareness has to be in place. The campaigns have to be in place, so that we work as per the gender parameters of NAC also, and as per the gender parameters of other international organizations. Like we have a Gati project of DST in collaboration with the British Council. I am happy to tell here that recently Professor Rabia went to UK for a training program pertaining to this gender development only. So you can see the seriousness even in the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, pertaining to addressing to the inclusiveness parameters, to the gender parameters of an institution. The participatory audit process helps to identify institutional strengths and challenges to integrate gender, as well as gender equity in the institution system and operations and in programs and activities. See, for example, about myself, I had a great passion for this gender development activities, women power, empowerment activities. Just like, it was my own interest. I remained busy with various activities at the same time. It could give me connections at state level, national level and international level. See, even that is important because it's a learning experience for you. Similarly, while listening to Meenakshi ji today or to Seema ji, it will be a learning experience for you, and you will be connected. You will be connected at the national level, because I know she's a very good trainer, and it will help you to organize more such workshops. See, not only for your institution, maybe at the school level, maybe at the college level, and maybe sometimes at the grassroots level too. Gender audit encourages the stakeholders in an educational institution to engage in a dialogue and reflect about the strengths and gaps of the system vis-a-vis gender-related issues. See, this is very important. My director Dika will bear with me that even when we fill in the form for NAC accreditation, there are so many parameters which assess the institution pertaining to these, whether they assess whether gender gaps are there in the institution, is the policy in place, is the infrastructure in place. So definitely if we are getting training on this, it's a 2 days workshop, gender audit training, and it's a mixed group over there. Each and everyone will play its role in order to have a better policy for our institution. According to an ILO manifesto, gender auditing helps institutions to focus on such areas as, see, these are very important, and I'm sure Meenakshi ji will be addressing to this. Mainstreaming gender as a cross-cutting concern within the unit's objectives, programs and budget. See, budget is again very important. Existing gender expertise and competence. Information and knowledge management on gender issues. System and instruments in use for accountability, evaluating and monitoring on gender. So these are some of the very important parameters on which we try to, try to see about the various, units and objectives in an institution. Staffing and human resources concerning balance between women and men, as well as gender-friendly policies. Organizational culture, Meenakshi ji was referring to it, and its effects on gender equality. Maybe in our own institution, many of the cases were not, documented. Many of such cases were not documented, but we all live in a patriarchal society, and we know somewhere, some type of bias, is there existing in the society, although the time has changed, the policies have changed, the leaderships have changed, no doubt, but still collectively we have to work for the inclusiveness of system in any institution, whether it's a university or any other organization. University as an institution is committed, I am talking about my own institution, to equity and equality of opportunity. It also, we try to aim and to offer quality education to all students irrespective of disparities in background. And of course, our aim is to correct ourselves. If we have to correct in any of the parameters, we are ready to do it. I'm happy to say about my university, all my colleagues, whether it's from administrative side or from teaching side, they have very open mind, and whenever any idea is floated pertaining to the gender development or women empowerment, I have always received, cooperation. If I am standing here today as a Vice Chancellor, believe me, I have always been, encouraged by my male colleagues on the campus, and with great, with great satisfaction, I can see that in this university we have always tried to maintain that type of, ambience. But again, the times have changed. We have to prove ourselves more and definitely come up to the expectations, not only of the national setup, even of the international setup. So I am sure that these 2 days workshop will help all the participants not only to contribute to our own system, but guide, others also, guide other institutions, form a group where as a movement we can take it and guide other institutions, whether it's higher education or school education, so that this, gender audit component is in place.
So it's a real privilege to be here. And this university, I had, as I said, visited it several years ago, but I can see the visible change on the campus. I cannot just see the change, I can feel the change. There's a different energy. There's a different sense of purpose. There is a new sense of hope, which in many universities, especially public universities across the length and breadth of this country, is receding tragically. There is also, what I sense here, an amazing sense of autonomy and the courage and the wisdom to do what is right by higher education. And I think this, even though this university was established in 1948 as one among the first post-independence universities, its expansion over the years has been nothing short of phenomenal. The many campuses it sustains, including the array of faculty across conventional disciplinary borders, new initiatives, new faculties, both in the sciences, education, law, medicine, oriental learning, which is something you find in very few universities in this country, and of course music, finance, you name it. So what the NEP says about multidisciplinarity is already here. It's only a question of having more conversations across departments. And so there's little wonder that this university was moved to an A++ grade by the NAC. So congratulations. I want to, of course, Dr. Roshnar has already mentioned this, but I do want to say that the expansive vision of the first woman vice chancellor of this university is in evidence everywhere. The dedication is palpable, the energy and the stellar faculty that drives the energy and has created a veritable oasis, or shall I say a fountainhead, and I'm not using superlatives here, of the flow of new frontiers of knowledge and forging what I would say a fraternity of seekers. It's a fraternity of seekers. It has, as we all know, seen very challenging times in the past, but today, as I said, it is invested with not a mentality of scarcity, but a mentality of abundance. I think when we make that shift from a mentality of scarcity to one of abundance, things begin to flow in our direction. I mean, I know there is a professor of Persian here, and I dare not say the original in Persian, but there is a saying that all you have to develop is to develop an adequate thirst, and the water will come to you. And I see that happening here. The syncretic traditions of the valley will truly find utterance in this expanding democratic ethos and the recovery of its glory. And the fact that this is happening is evident. It is certainly a university on the move, irresistibly, irrevocably on the move, not content to rest on its laurels and looking to expand its footprint and interfacing rapidly with a changing world. Not just looking at its position in Jammu and Kashmir, not just looking at its position in the rest of India, but looking at a large, changing, pulsating knowledge commons and interacting with it. I think of course, a lot of the credit goes to many of you around the table, and of course your indomitable Vice Chancellor, Nilofer Khan. It's very interesting, we visited and we revisited your mission and vision. And what we saw there really reaffirmed our understanding or our appreciation of this place. So it's not a moribund university. Your vision, of course, is there to be a world-class university committed to create and disseminate knowledge for human development and welfare. As long as that, many universities share that vision. But what is not shared in other universities is something we will talk about in the next sessions. The whole idea of inclusion, the whole idea of care, the whole idea of trust, the whole idea of diversity, which is there in the extrapolation of your mission, is truly unique. We'll come to that in the next session. We compared your mission and vision with other places in J&K, even universities that were established after you, much after you. Of course, comparisons are odious, but we never found a vision statement, a mission statement that talks about these things, about trust, about a community of learners, about interdisciplinarity, about excellence, everyone speaks about, but also this whole idea of fraternity, trust, and an ethics of care. And building on what you call the valued relationships among its stakeholders. People seldom talk about building relationships. This university has done that among staff, faculty, and alumni. You have, of course, 5 campuses to speak about, but 5 plus fun, plus so many others. And you obviously have 15, 16 centers and 16 faculties. A huge, with 35,000 aspirants who want to come into this place. A huge responsibility on the shoulders of a really inspiring woman and her team. So I'd like us to give the Vice Chancellor and her team a big hand. And I think the fact that more and more of you are joining that team, are the foot soldiers of that team, talks about that spirit of inclusion. And it also talks about integrity, collaboration, diversity, and learning. the university fundamentally also affirms and embraces, and this is again very rare, you won't see it in any other website of any other university, multiple identities, values, belief systems, cultural practices of its stakeholders. I know when we are in a university, we seldom go back and read our mission and vision because we think it's a part of our everyday life. But it's important for us to revisit it because it's obviously a dynamic process. It's a work in progress that is being revisited. So clearly, an academy or a university that includes inclusion, coexistence, equality, all these need to be nurtured beyond what the University of Kashmir sees its role. Today, it is engaging in the larger universe, bringing with opportunity. So, just a quote I would say, so may knowledge grow from more to more, and may more of reverence dwell, so that mind and soul, according will make one music as before. And it's that music that we would like to draw it over the next couple of days that we have had the privilege to spend with you. We'd like to draw out the multiple intelligences that those of you in education know that Howard Gardner of Harvard University has talked about, that everybody is endowed with a special kind of intelligence, and we don't want a one size fits all. Some have musical intelligence, some have naturalist, some have existential, some have bodily and kinesthetic, some have linguistic intelligence, some have intrapersonal, some have interpersonal, some have spatial. How do we bring out the artist in every student, every faculty, every non-teaching staff? Because each individual is a special kind of an artist. And I think a university like this owes to itself the task of drawing out that special artist in each one of them. I've often said this, when we move from scarcity to abundance, you're not content with counting the seeds in an apple. You want to see how many apples there is likely to be in a seed, how many seeds you will plant so that more apples. I use apple deliberately because this is the land of apples. And the 5 minds of the future, the synthesizing mind, the disciplined mind, the creative mind, the respectful mind, and the ethical mind. So the need for education to play an effective role as integrating cultures of peace is something that we see hopefully blossoming on this campus. We also know that it's important for us as the educators to enable young people to live life without illusions, because the world out there is changing beyond what we can. We are preparing students for a future that we cannot even imagine. Who knew Chat GPT up until 2 months ago? Whoever thought that artificial intelligence would create the kind of situation that it has created today? Who even said in my vintage, who knew that you could type your thesis on Word and you could correct it so easily? Because we went through reams and reams and reams of typewriting on that old typewriter, correcting, going back and so on. So the commons in which we are situated, the learning commons, is a world wide web. How we access it with intelligence, with sagacity, knowing what to leave out, not the social media fixes that we go for every time, not the tweets and the likes and the dislikes, but how do we harness that intelligence from the commons and how do we contribute? I think this university strikes me as ready to know that it is making a contribution, not just receiving from the commons. And of course the ethics, many of you are here, had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Rabia at the forefront of nanotechnology. But also, as Oppenheimer always raised, I don't know if any of you have seen that film, to what purpose am I putting my science? What is the ethics of the science that we are doing? Is it somehow helping humanity to live a more dignified, just life? Because the word that we all use today is VUCA, VUCA. Our current world is filled with volatility, with uncertainty, with complexity, and with ambiguity. There are no certainties today in the world outside. And how do we navigate our young children, our young students, and our younger faculty and staff to deal with this change all the time? It's change every minute, and it's uncertainty. COVID has taught us, you're all coming out of COVID. We're still dealing with the aftermath of COVID. This university has bounced back very fast. There are still universities that are struggling to get the attention of our students back in the classroom. People who have been used to online. Online is good, of course, you have fantastic MOOCs in this university, so I'm told by your professor. But the transmission that happens between a student and a teacher, there are always silent transmissions that happen, not just completing the syllabus. The larger syllabus, the syllabus of life, is out there because of the kinds of persons we are as teachers, the kinds of people we become, the experience we bring from our diverse backgrounds, whether they are rural, urban, privileged, non-privileged. That is really the sum and substance. So interconnectedness is important, and your university has stressed this, as I think it was Burke who said, you pluck a flower and you disturb a star. There is a connection across universes, across spatial universes, that we need to really, really acknowledge. So when we talk, Oppenheimer was asked that, you created the atom bomb. What is the weapon that can tame it? What is the weapon that can tame this horrendous thing that we have let unleash into the world? He thought for a while, and this was in the last parts of his life, when he had begun to have questions about whether it was the ethical thing he did in the Manhattan Project. And he said, yes, there is one weapon, and that weapon is peace. And the role of universities in that, not merely saying we are doing peace, but in every classroom, in every context, in every engagement, the more just we are. And this includes gender justice. It's not just about women, it's about men and women acting in concert. If justice becomes the norm of every day. Now, we also see leadership styles which are different. We see that style, we see it palpably here. What is known as the conventional power distance. The power distance between the vice chancellors, the deans, and the rest of the community. When a woman steps into that, and I'm not saying men don't do it either, you will see a difference. That power difference somehow becomes less of a wall. You can approach the head of state. You can speak to her. You can communicate to her. Even if you don't speak to her, you know that she's picked up. I watched your Vice Chancellor come into the room this morning. She knows each one of you by name. It's very difficult for a Vice Chancellor to know every single member of that constituency by name. And so she said, how are you, Seema? How are you, Saima? I heard her say that. And so obviously there is something that's happening here. So therefore power exercised rightly must be as gentle as the rose petal sitting down in the morning breeze. And as Eleanor Roosevelt said, the real power is not to push down, but to pull up. And hopefully that is what this conversation with all of you, we will take back from the learnings that we had. So when you embed gender justice, so a university does many things. It's a ruminative space, it's an aspirational space, it's a dialogic space, it must be a democratic space, it must be a diverse space, but it also must be an engendered space. How do we, all of this, democracy, dialogue, justice, moves into creating an engendered space, a space that is engendered to do the right thing by education, opening of the human mind, removing all fears. Today we do live in an atmosphere of fear, but education is very uniquely situated to be able to make the change in the mindsets of its stakeholders. And by being just the kind of teachers, deans, librarians, student welfare people, admin staff is very, very important, because they are really the building blocks of an organization, especially a university. So by saying that, we can move from this notion of fear to a notion of expansiveness. Depends really on the interactions that happen not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom. Words carry enormous amount of weight. Concepts carry enormous amount of weight. The Supreme Court of India has just come out with a very interesting, shall I say, booklet, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, just a few months ago, about what are the words that should not be used in a gender just court. Because you know, there are words we use like, I'm sorry, I'm using that word and excuse me, it should not be, it's unconstitutional now. We use words like adulteress. We use words like mistress. We use like headmistress. These are words that should never be used. We should only use woman. And we cannot say people housewife. We have to say homemaker. Now they are trying, because a homemaker's vocation is also an important vocation. Vocation. So the court, Supreme Court of India, we will give you a handout, is very cognizant of what language does. Language creates universes. So a gender just, and there is no place that is gender neutral. I know very often people say the STEM areas are gender neutral. No sir, no ma'am. We are not aspiring for gender neutrality. We are aspiring for gender justice. And we will come to that. So how do we embed gender justice? How do we recover social capital? Because when women are marginalized, you lose social capital. You lose the ability to generate the kind of GDP, even if you're coming from an economics department. I know there are many of you from the economics department. You have to make it beyond a GDP centric model, because there are other methods of growth, other notions of development, and I'm sure you have all of that in your library. So equity and access is not just about numeric presence. We have equal number of women and men in the botany department, or we have fewer women than men in the physics department, or that is important. That is important to have numeric equity, but that's not enough for equality. We are moving from notions of equity to notions of equality. And Article 14 of the Constitution, you people have talked about it in your own conversations with us, as has Neelu, as has Roshnara and so on, that this was part of your ever first and second gender audit that has been done in your university, with the kind of detailing of data that is, we've gone through your data, the meticulousness with which it has been done. We will refer to that in the next session. But you know, today 49.3% women, all of India, constitute the higher education space. 49.3%. But this is a staggering paradox, because numeric presence does not lead to substantive equality. As you go up, you know, in every university, you start off with more, in Kerala, for example, there are more women assistant professors and instructors than there are men. But as you go up, there are very few associate professors in this university, I notice. But as you go up the ranks to full professor, the numbers of women drop out. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is because of the men, no. It's because of patriarchy, which affects both men and women. It's not that men are blocking you. From your data that we found, you all felt that no, we are not blocked to go up. What is holding us back? Our own socialization, the way we think. We don't want to lean in, we don't want to take up positions of power, because then we'll suddenly become vulnerable. Do we have the courage to do that? Because with power comes enormous responsibility. The responsibility to be absolutely transparent all the time. There is no distinction then between your private and your political space. You have to be conscious that everything you say, everything you do, who you talk to, how you talk to them, what you say, what you think, can be in the public domain. And when the necessity for lack of transparency happens, then you know something is not quite right. So we are really looking at substantive equality, and hopefully that will be our anthem as we go along over the next few days. We all know that women are discriminated against on university campuses. I'm happy to see that we walked down yesterday, we saw those beautiful posters, zero tolerance for gender-based violence. Huge big posters all over. And the Saksham report of the UGC had made several recommendations which this university has begun to follow. But as I said, you're not going to be resting on your laurels. You're going to be moving beyond the minimum requirement to maximizing it. Because we see Kashmir University as a trendsetter, not just for this state, I, in my personal capacity, in whichever way I do interface with universities, and I'm going to make this template of yours known to others. In some ways, I'm sorry, you people must advertise yourself a little better. You feel embarrassed to talk about your achievements. Please get out of that mindset. People must know the work that's happening here. Not enough people know. But and obviously the Vice Chancellor herself can't go and do it. She can't beat her own drum. So all of you as stakeholders, to your social media groups, to your conferences that you go to, whether it's the All India National Science Conference, wherever you go, please talk about this fact that you gals have done this thing which hasn't been done before. So now your sights are not in J&K. Your sights are not even with India. Your sights are beyond the shores of South Asia, to Africa, to Southeast Asia, and even to Europe. Now there are several myths, as you know, that are propagated about this whole business of gender and gender audits. Many people say, if you're a women's college, उसमें gender audit करने की क्या ज़रूरत है? हम सारी औरतें हैं. But you know, that is where gender audits are most required, because that is where patriarchal structures are carried on without thinking. The same processes, the same methods of working. The only thing is that women are sitting in those rows, they're sitting on those chairs, but they're doing exactly what patriarchally non-inoculated men do. And there are many men who are very gender sensitive, and we need to acknowledge that.
I take the opportunity to extend a hearty welcome to all the dignitaries, Dr. Gopinath, Director WISCOMP, her team, Dr. Seema and Shilpiji, and Director HRDC, Professor Mushtaka Madarzi, all the heads of the departments, the deans, the senior management from administration, Chief Librarian, Allama Iqbal Library, Professor Samir, and dear colleagues and dear students. Today, first of all, at the very outset, I would like to extend a hearty welcome to our chief guest of the occasion, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Nilofer Khan. Dear Madam, it has all the time been very inspiring, and we are fortunate enough to have you as our founder director of Center for Women Studies and Research first, and then our Honorable Vice Chancellor now. This gives us every reason to celebrate your leadership, and it is very important to share with this August gathering that Professor Nilofer Khan, she is the first female Vice Chancellor of this university. You will be surprised to see that during the first female Vice Chancellor's leadership and her gender responsive governance, you will see that our university has jumped by 20 points in only 1 year. I would also like to share with you that since she has assumed the charge as Vice Chancellor of this university, the campus of this university, everywhere it is echoing with the buzzword either gender equality or gender champions or women empowerment or other events, national as well as international events. We are hopeful that under your dynamic leadership, your gender responsive and gender sensitive governance, your democratic governance, democratic leadership, we are hopeful that this university will be leading university of the country, and it will set an example for the rest of the universities of the country, and will be a university with difference.
I extend a warm welcome to all for the two-day workshop on gender audit training being organized by the Center for Women Studies and Research, University of Kashmir, in collaboration with WISCOMP, Women in Security, Conflict Management and Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, the WISCOMP Gender Audit Training Workshop aims to equip participants with essential skills and knowledge related to gender audit and mainstreaming gender considerations in various organizational processes. It is indeed a matter of great honor to have amongst us the Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Kashmir, Professor Nilofer Khan Ma'am, herself a firm believer of gender equality, as is evident by her keen interest in organizing this training workshop. We thank you, ma'am, for your sincere efforts and guidance. Dear participants, our distinguished expert for the training workshop is Dr. Meenakshi Gopinath, founder and honorary director of WISCOMP, an initiative that seeks to promote the leadership of South Asian women in the areas of peace, security, and regional cooperation. She is a recipient of several awards, including the prestigious Padma Shri Award and fellowships of international repute.